The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center. This is the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. It's also the home for Autism Live. We're thrilled this morning. Big show for you. It's a Wednesday and you know it's my favorite when we have Dr. Granpeesheh here, and she is here. Yes, she's here. It's been a little while because we've been off and she's been off and here, there, and everywhere. But she is here and she's going to be answering your questions in just a minute. A little bit later on today, we're having Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspaw Jackson will also be here with me. Our special guest today is Iris Knightley. She is the author of the new children's book, The Three Brother Tears. So we're going to be talking with her. Plus, we have a lot of in the news and some very exciting stuff for you. But the whole show, while we're live, is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concern. There are more ways than ever to participate with us here, and Samantha's going to show you some of those many ways that you can participate. While she's doing that, I'm going to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. I encourage you to check that out. It's about to change. We're getting a whole new website, and I'm very excited about that. But check it out while it still is in its old form because it's still pretty functional. If you click on the computer screen, there's a triangle on the computer screen. If you click on it, it will start the live show or the most recently recorded live show. To the side of all that, there's a series of boxes, and the top one says your question. If you put your cursor there and you start typing and hit enter, it magically goes up to a satellite, comes back down. I don't know what the configuration is, but I have access to your questions that way. It takes a couple of minutes, so ask your questions early and often, like they say about voting, right? And in that way, you can be having an almost real-time dialogue with us here in the studio. I will point out that you can also do that on Facebook, and we're getting a little bit more adept at being able to see your questions in real time on Facebook, which is very exciting for us. What's nice about the live feature is that it's total anonymity. Nobody can see who you are. They don't know who the question goes back to. So lots of different ways. Find the way that suits you to participate. Again, we're on Twitter, we're on Periscope, always on YouTube Live, and we are, I guess we haven't been telling people enough, but we are on iTunes. We are a free download of a podcast on iTunes, and you have your choice when you download it of having it with picture or just sound. There is a spot where you can click and say audio only, so you can take us on your phone. You can take us in your car. Anywhere you want to be, we can be there with you, and we appreciate you doing that. All right, I don't want to waste any more time because we have Dr. Granpeesheh with us, so it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Hello. I started my phone and it made a lot of noise. Good heavens, but that's how we're watching your comments now. In any case, we want to welcome you back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much. It's been a while.
It has been a while. You had some places you had to be in December, and then we were felled by the horrible plague here at Autism Live. There was some illness.
That's
so
right.
we were not here that last week that we had planned to be with
That's
you,
right.
which was really exciting. And then everybody took a little bit of time off and people were sick again. And you know, it's been a thing.
So nice to be back. Thank you.
And you look fabulous.
Thank you so much. So do you.
No,
It's
I'm
lovely to be back.
sorry. You must have a painting underneath your bed that is aging for
Thank you. Thank you. I just got a haircut. That's why.
You look fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Sometime you have to put out a face cream that we can all, because people may not realize, but Dr. Granpichet, I know she looks like she's 27, but she has been working in the field of autism longer than that.
This is my 40th year.
Okay.
Wow.
Like, see what I'm saying? Don't you want the face cream
We're in
now?
2018, so it's I can
Your
officially say it's
40th
not
year.
yet though. It will be in like I guess June-ish, but
Wow.
yeah, it's 40 years. 40 years.
40
Holy
years.
moly.
Yeah, but if you say that quickly, people are going to assume you're saying 14.
No, 40.
Because-
So if I actually was able to find the very first child that I ever worked with, who I ever worked with, he would be 43, 44 now.
Wow.
I know.
That's really,
I know.
that's got to be kind of mind-boggling.
It is
to
mine.
you.
It's crazy.
I just yesterday was talking to a therapist who said that on Facebook she saw one of her early kids in high school and that she just had a meltdown. She
Yeah,
just was
it's
like,
crazy.
"Are you kidding me?"
Mm-hmm.
So to be 43.
It's freaky.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And in that time, I haven't given you a proper introduction here because
No,
I got so excited. But so Dr. Granpichet, for those of you who don't know, is an amazing, I think the preeminent expert in the field of autism. And she's a visionary. And you founded the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. You also founded Autism Care and Treatment Today, a wonderful charity. And she gives us this time every Wednesday, an hour where she answers your questions in real time, which I always think about when we start this. I always think how much that would have meant to me in the very earliest days of autism if I had known that I could have asked you a question. Oh my gosh. So I'm so thrilled and proud that we have her
Thank you
pretty
very
much
much,
on a
Shan.
weekly basis, sometimes with little breaks because you have to be other places.
Right.
And we're grown-ups, we appreciate that sometimes you're called away to other places.
Thank you very much.
But thrilled to have you here. We do give the disclaimer at the start of the show that even an expert of Dr. Granpichet's caliber cannot give individual specific advice in this format. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
It would be disrespectful to the person who's on the autism spectrum that you're asking questions about. But please send in your questions. And by the way, we welcome questions from parents, teachers, practitioners, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and most especially from individuals who are on the autism spectrum themselves. I know more and more individuals are writing in with questions, and we absolutely love that. This is a big, beautiful spectrum of a community, and everybody is welcome to write in with their questions.
Absolutely.
So, having said that, we have 7 pages of questions, but we're going to be looking at what you guys have to say. Hey, Dottie Davis, we see that you're watching. Thrilled to have you here with us. And those of you, if you want to write in, I know we used to in the past tell Dr. Granpichet when you guys would write in and say where you're from. And we'll try to squeeze that in from time to time because I know that gets really exciting. I want to start with some questions, and we'll get through as many of them as we can.
Fast. Yes.
All right. Some of the ones at the beginning are really easy. About how long does it typically take from beginning of an application with CARD until the beginning of therapy?
Right, so that is variable, and I just sort of want to explain the process of when someone applies to CARD. So if you go on our website, generally you're entering through our website and you will then go through to admissions. And what the admissions team does, we are on their back all the time so that they're as fast as they possibly can be. So admissions will send you some forms to fill out, basic stuff, and you will then send us your basic information, which is essentially your insurance card, and most of our clients are insurance funded, so that's the process. And then they will submit that information. They'll contact your insurance company for coverage. Now that is then out of our hands at that point. Usually we will get a verification that you have coverage, but not what type of coverage, what amount of coverage, what is your policy, what's your copay, what's your coinsurance, all that sort of stuff is good stuff that we need to wait on your insurance company to give back to us. Some insurance companies have information listed on their website about different policies. Very few do. Most of them actually just last year in 2017 started to accept requests from us online. Up to that point, believe it or not, we had to fax in requests. Fax, yes, that good old fax machine. We still have fax machines only because of this purpose. So it is really, some of the delay has to do with the insurance company. Then we receive the authorization only for an initial evaluation. And so then we get to schedule the initial evaluation with one of our supervisors and then you go in and the supervisor conducts an evaluation. Various insurance companies will have different requests, so some will have testing requirements. Then we have to schedule testing to be done for your child. They will always, every insurance company will require a diagnosis, which could be within the last couple of years, but they will request the diagnosis, and some will want verification of the diagnosis through testing, such as the ADOS. Those types of things will tend to delay the process. We, of course, do conduct this testing, but we're not always in this where you are. So that's one thing. The second thing is some of your insurance companies request home observations, school observations. We have to do all of that. And once we've done all of that, we have to generate a report with recommendations based on what we feel is appropriate for your child. That all has to be written up, submitted to the insurance company again. We get all of that done usually within a month. Then that goes to the insurance company, and then we have to sit on it and wait for the insurance company to authorize. That then gets your case transferred to authorization. In authorization, our authorization department, while we're waiting on that, we will give you a bunch of paperwork to fill out, which now is getting to be extensive because it's not just paperwork for your insurance company, but it's assessments for your child. And the faster you fill that out, that helps us. And then once we get the authorization from the child, from the insurance company, we have a limit of 30 days in which to start. So the whole process maximum should be no more than 3 months, but generally it's running around that time because it's very new to insurance companies, this whole field. And they're all extremely different. Kaiser has a system where they skip all that and they start on day one. So that's a much, much faster process. So if you're a Kaiser patient, we'll be starting you within 10 days, which is a totally different thing. TRICARE has a multitude of requirements. So if you're a military family, TRICARE requires all of our individual therapists to be approved on their site. So that holds things back. There's all these different requirements that we're trying to do as fast as possible. We have 200 people at CARD whose job it is to get people through admissions and authorizations and credentialing. So it's kind of a crazy process, so please bear with us.
Okay, but gives you an idea. And there are things that you can be doing during that time. CARD is doing more to help you during that time, because I know firsthand what it's like when you know, okay, this is what we want to do. From that moment to the first time a therapist is with your kid is excruciating, right? But there are things that you can do. CARD's been very mindful about how to best use that time. There's trainings that are available to you. At a certain point, there's somebody called a family support expert who gets to meet with you and help you to get your stuff in order. We just had a conversation about that other day, Vince Redmond and I, about getting them started earlier. And there are support groups, there's ways that you can get connected. So if you're in that process and feeling the pain of it and want more to do, if you're already overwhelmed, I don't want to overwhelm you more, but if you want more to do, you can reach out to me and I can help to connect you to some of the other things that you can be doing to get yourself ready. Because there's considerations. There's things that you got to rearrange in your day and in your life and in your car and in your bathroom to get yourself ready so that your kid can get the most out of this.
Definitely.
So there's even a video that I did this last summer that are my 10 tips for how to get the most out of your CARD program. And we could be getting that to you.
Yeah, we should do that as a routine.
Well, there's a letter that each new client gets from me that goes through some of those. And it plays on our TVs, but if they haven't started at the center yet, they won't be able to watch it. But we can send it to you directly, and it's my 10 tips from having gone through it, and some of them are things that were told to me before I started CARD, which made all the difference in the world. So we can get that to you. But write to me. You can always write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com, and I'm happy to connect you with whatever you need to have. Okay. Next question has to do with this little tenty thing that I have here on the thing. Somebody wants to know, do we still have the behavior intervention plan builder?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
It is the BIP builder. It is in Skills. So if you go to skillsforautism.com, and you will see the BIP builder. I think we even have the BIP builder on its own, don't
Yes,
we?
you can get the BIP builder. If you don't want all of Skills, you can
Yep.
get the BIP builder, which is fabulous. If you're looking to reduce behaviors that are a problem, that's the thing to have. Amazing. More and more schools are using it. It's remarkable.
Absolutely.
I'm moving on to the next question. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thank you for all your work in the field. My daughter is 13 years old, highly verbal and social, but engages in very impulsive behavior. Even though she is aware of consequences of her behavior and has expressed not wanting to change certain behaviors, it's most likely she just cannot help it. Some examples are calling other kids names in the middle of a quiet class, hurting her brother, lifting her skirt, or laughing when others are hurt. Do you have any advice on how I can teach my daughter to control this impulsivity and bridge the gap between what she knows to be appropriate behavior and what she actually engages in? I truly don't see this behavior as attention seeking, but would love to help support my daughter in her growth. And she says, thank you.
Okay, sure, great. Let me just, again, this is one of those cases where I don't know your child, but just based on what you're writing, if I was meeting with you, I would want to do a couple of little things to rule out, and then I would do a functional behavior assessment. But one of the things, calling out names concerns me. I don't know if your child could be anywhere on the whole realm of Tourette's, but I would want to do an evaluation to make sure she doesn't have Tourette's disorder, and that is because that has to do with calling out names or saying words that are inappropriate, and if it is out of the control of the individual. So I'd want to get that evaluated first. You'd want to see a psychiatrist or a neurologist for that. That would be one thing. Outside of that, you'd want to do a functional behavior assessment, which I don't think you can do. You need a BCBA or board certified behavior analyst to do it, because it does sound attention seeking. However, you feel like it isn't attention seeking. So really it would be important to get a professional in there. And what they will do is they'll look at each individual behavior and try to find the function. They could have different functions, by the way. Saying something, hurting the brother could have a different function than attention seeking. Lifting her skirt could be attention seeking. It isn't, attention seeking also includes things like wanting to interact. Sometimes our kids are trying to interact and they don't know how else to interact, and they think this is the way to get someone's attention because I'm supposed to be socially interacting and this is appropriate. They just don't know. So we have to find the function first. If we don't know the function, we don't know how to treat it. Like, it's just that simple. And part of that is doing the medical evaluation to make sure this is not something neurological like Tourette's. If it isn't, then your next step is the FBA, Functional Behavior Assessment, and a BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, can do that. Now, we do have an indirect functional assessment tool on our skills website, I believe. It's called
part of the BIP builder, which we were just talking about.
Right? And it's called CARD's Indirect Functional Assessment, and it is CIFA, C-I-F-A. If you go on our Skills for Autism website, it's in the BIP plan section, and just try to do that. That answers you answer questions about these individual behaviors. Don't treat them as one. They're all different behaviors. You'll answer questions and it'll suggest some possible functions. It is not as good as a direct functional behavior assessment, obviously. Usually what we do in ABA is we'll do an indirect. If it's very obvious to everyone, that's enough. If it isn't, we'll go ahead and do a direct. If that's even unclear, then what we do is what's called an experimental FBA. And experimental is like we provoke the behavior in order to see what exactly happens. But essentially at this point, let's just see, let's start with the medical evaluation and the indirect. And then if you need help, we can try to give you BCBAs in your area, perhaps, who can do a direct FBA for you.
And you should have BCBAs accessible at school. You can
Definitely, yes.
You can ask at school for them to do an FBA. You can put it in an email. I'm asking for an FBA to be done on my child in regards to whatever behavior she's doing at school, and that you would like it done by a BCBA, which stands for a Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Now, for the CIFA and the Behavior Plan Intervention Builder, you can go to skills4autism.com, and it's FOR, not the number 4. Or you can call 877-975-4559. And you can tell them, I'm just interested in the behavior intervention plan because I just want the CIFA.
Yeah.
Or you can ask for, a free trial of the whole thing, whichever you want to do, but that is available.
And to let you know why we're advising this, the reason is that in changing behavior, you obviously need to know what the cause is. So if someone is doing a particular challenging behavior because they want attention, as opposed to, let's say, they want to escape a situation, the treatment is completely different for those two things, right? So it's really, really important, because you're not going to be able to treat each of these behaviors without knowing why she's doing it. So the function is the why. And so it becomes very important. Now, just start with that, and then you can always write back in. But generally speaking, if you get a behavior analyst, the BCBA, involved, they'll then teach you how to do the treatment once they know the function.
As parents, I just want to say that often we just want to get to the treatment. Can you just treat my child?
Right.
And the thing that I always say to parents is, if something breaks in your car, you don't just take it to the mechanic and say, I don't want you to look at it, I don't want you to test drive it, I just want you to start ripping things out and fixing them, because it would be expensive and dangerous. Right? Same thing with our kids. So they have to test drive and see what's going on, which
Absolutely.
that's that functional behavior assessment, figuring out what's going on before you start working on something.
Right,
We do
exactly.
it with our cars, we understand it with our cars,
Right.
so we just need to understand that with our kids. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we've got 2 questions that I especially want to answer. One that's just come in from India about sleep and puberty. We're going to love that, right? And then one about, we've got a desperate parent whose child exposed himself to somebody. So we're going to talk about that. It'll be a tough little conversation, but we're going to have it after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. It's January and a whole new year has gone by. To commemorate that, Autism Live and Smarty have decided to give you a template to make your very own time capsule. The materials you'll be needing are glue, a jar, photos, keepsakes, pen, and a template you can print from facebook.com/autismlive. Here's the template that I printed out from our Facebook page. Depending on the skill of your child, they can do this independently, or you're going to help them fill out all the questions. Once you have finished filling out the time capsule sheet, I've left 2 spaces on the top, one for a school photo, one for a family photo. Feel free to glue an image there. Now that I've glued the photos onto my sheet, now I'm going to grab my jar and start filling it up with all the things I would want to remember from the year that just passed. I would say include photos, mementos, toys, things that are going to be really important to you at this time and moment that you'll be excited to see later in the future. Once you're done filling up your jar with all the things that were important to you for the year 2013, you're going to want to seal it up. And it's up to you for how long you want to keep it locked up. Time capsules are a great way to remember where you have been and where you're going. So I hope you really enjoy this activity, and until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I mentioned that we are going to take a couple of questions. First one that came in online then one from YouTube. We got lots of things to do here. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, and she's answering your questions. It's called Ask Dr. Doreen. So from India, hello, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. Happy New Year. Thank you. This is from India. Your show keeps me going. My question is, do sleep issues reemerge during puberty? My daughter used to sleep through the night after having some issues before her early intervention, but now that she's 8 years old, from the past few months, her sleep is disturbed, and thank you.
Oh. Yeah, it could be puberty related, although 8 is pretty young.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it is. Lots of different things could be causing sleep problems. That could be environmental sounds that you're not aware of, and she is, because I don't know if your daughter has sound sensitivity. So you want to make sure there's nothing going on in the environment. Here in the US, I know a lot of times parents will come and tell me, my daughter wakes up, my son wakes up every night at like 3 a.m. I'm like, well, what else is going on? And parents will look and be like, something as simple as like the sprinklers go on, and that disturbs our kids. So first thing is make sure, maybe do a recording of her room, like just put a cassette player or something and record her room so that you can see that. That's one thing. The second thing is make sure when she wakes up, I'm just throwing out ideas now, she doesn't have access to food or drink. If we, other than water's fine, but if you go to eat something or drink something sugary or with taste, you're training your stomach to wake you up at that time. So that is not a good thing. The other things that come to mind are make sure there's no medical issues going on, obviously. Sometimes our kids who start seizures at night. So that is very important. And seizures do actually, not to scare you by any means, but seizures start to appear in around 8, 9, 10, and a little bit later even. So you want to make sure that she's not having any kind of, could be subclinical, so you know, nothing major, but her brain is seizing. And the only way to know that is to do a sleep EEG, which I don't know if you have access to in India. So that's the other thing. And then diet. Diet, of course, also influences our sleep patterns, definitely. So you want to make sure there's nothing new in her diet. Now, the easiest thing to do is to have one of, you know, a lot of either phones or what are they called? Apple Watches. Have, or these Fitbits, these things that measure, there's a lot of apps out there now that measure lots of things about your sleep. So it's actually kind of cool. You can even, on a phone, you can put the phone like right under her mattress and it'll feel the various times she wakes up, the duration that she's up, how much movement is happening. So that will start giving you some information right away. So let's gather some info first, and then what's really important is what you do when she wakes up. Because if you come into the room, if she has access to you, if she comes to you, if she has food, if she does anything other than stay in her bed and try to go back to sleep, we are now breaking her pattern and like causing her to have sleep issues. So be very cautious with that. Let us know more.
Thank you so much. And I want to get to this question because I know we've got a parent who's been very concerned. I just learned my adult son who lives with us exposed himself to a female worker. It was over 3 months before we were told this. Of course, our questions to him were met with stares. He did eventually admit to me that it's true. I don't know what to do. Did someone tell him to do this, or did someone do it to him? Has he done this before? We need help. And she goes on to say that she lives in New York, and that they are worried and nervous, and is there a way to get help? And they are close to an office that we have in upstate New York.
Right, and I see that she's a nurse, so that's great. It's a nurse
is that what that means?
Nurse practitioner.
Ah, okay.
So not just a nurse, but a nurse practitioner, so like very close to a physician. So here's what, I can understand that you're concerned. So what I would say is that, first of all, don't be scared and don't think a million different things. A lot of times our kids, our adults kids, or our kids who are reaching adulthood, will tend to do these things not because someone has, let's say, molested them or done something inappropriate to them or demonstrated something inappropriate or has in any way done anything of that nature, but more because they themselves don't realize what they're doing is not appropriate. So from his perspective, he could have just been making a move, like really just trying to do something to a female worker. Maybe he finds, this is puberty. Our boys are starting to like really want to be with a female. He'll see a female, it might arouse him, and then he doesn't know anything about arousal, self-containment, self-regulation, not doing certain things to people, not doing it in public, how it makes them feel. Not all of that might be out of his realm of reality. I don't know your son, so I don't know his level of functioning, but these are assumptions I'm making. So what I would suggest, first of all, is don't panic at all about this. We do have an office near you. Our office is very close to you. If you go on our website and look, you will see the location of the office that is very, very close to you. We have really good staff in that office, particularly one of my senior supervisors, Denise Ryan. Hey, Denise. Is there, and she is fantastic with adults, and she is fantastic with these types of issues. Denise is a board certified behavior analyst. Of course, currently she is involved with a lot of our continuing education for all of our staff at CARD. Denise is someone who's been at CARD over 20 years. So, but I think she also still sees patients. If not, she can definitely give you guidance for sure. So I would call that office and speak with Denise. You'll see the office that's closest to you. I just don't want to name it because I don't want, I don't want to say too much. Yeah. I want to keep your privacy. And all I can say right now is that you need to just find out a little bit more. If it is correct that your child just was trying to make a move, then it's as simple as teaching him what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. A lot of our kids at this age start to do behavior that a female would classify as stalking or as very inappropriate. And we just have to teach him self-regulation, what things are appropriate, that he cannot, and there's a lot of options. And, depending on his age and depending on how much of a problem this is, there are also medical treatments that can help you as well.
Okay. And I think it's important. I mean, we all get so squeamish about this, the idea that, oh my gosh, my child did this. But I think we've seen in the news that this is, that there are a certain amount of this. There are grown men who are not on the spectrum that don't know what the rules are. Yes, so how important is it for us all as parents to make sure that we tell our young boys and our young girls, here are the rules. This is what's acceptable. This is what isn't acceptable. No one should do this to you, and you should not do this to anybody else. Absolutely. We can't assume, but these things can be taught.
They definitely can be taught, and as a parent, I guess I would have multiple fears. Thanks for pointing that out, Shannon, and I think you probably have multiple. One is like, oh my God, like what did my child do to someone else? Yeah. And then it's, of course, oh my God, what can someone else do to my child? Yeah. And
where did they get the idea from it? Like what she's talking about, where do they even get the idea?
Yeah, exactly. But like, don't panic, because this is not uncommon. And, as Shannon said, there are rules. We can teach the rules. Our kids generally do very well with the rules once they're taught, our adults. But, and hopefully this female worker is understanding of it. Obviously, if you didn't hear about it in 3 months, then, they're not angry or something. And it is one of those things that comes with autism. Autism, sometimes our kids, as you know, the biggest deficit in autism is perspective taking, theory of mind. And if you're unable to see other people's perspectives, you will do something like this, because it is not, you don't know societal rules, and you don't know that you're maybe causing someone else to be shocked. So, I can't blame the individual who did it because
Absolutely.
they just don't know any better.
Absolutely. I want to take a question that came in on our YouTube channel. I think you say that Shay wants to know, hi, how much speech therapy should a child in school receive if he only talks to express his needs and wants and does not initiate a conversation? And she says, thank you.
Sure. So my general belief, there's, speech, generally speaking, schools are not going to provide, or just the paradigm of speech therapy, you never really get intensive speech therapy. Obviously, the more speech, the better. So at this point, I would say, 5 hours a week. That would be considered intensive speech therapy. But really what I think you're doing, you're going past speech a little bit. You're going into like advanced language areas, language and communication. So you might want to be doing speech, like 3 to 5 hours of speech, and add a full ABA program, because your ABA program will really be focused on teaching social communication, which is one of the first signs of autism. So you might want to add, by talking to your school, I think the parent said school, you need to get an ABA program added and not just speech. Speech alone is not going to be enough.
And boy, how much do I appreciate you saying that? Because a lot of times school is going to tell you, oh, here's what we have. We have speech and OT for you, and that's our program for autism. And we as parents, how would we know that that's not enough, right? If nobody is telling us, so I'm glad, because everybody needs to know that's just what they're offering. That's not enough.
And in California, Shannon, nowadays, like you and I are old timers, and like they're, schools.
Who you calling old timer? Absolutely.
The old days, even like 20 years ago, you look at it, or even 10 years, 15 years ago, schools did not have good programs here in California, but they are now improving in California. There are like much, much better programs. However, outside of California, the world is still very, very far behind this. So when I go to other states, particularly the South, the East, and Midwest, sometimes you see things that are just like reminiscent of 25 years ago in California. And so the parents out there are going through some of the same issues, exactly as you said. Forget about, hey, I'm going to give you speech and OT. Sometimes it's just like, I have nothing to give you. So, or don't know even autism has the capability of improving. So,
it's frightening. Gail has written in on YouTube and wants to know, are there any medications for self-harming?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, there are. To answer your question, there are medications. They are not particularly for self-harming. They are medications that will generally stop any kind of excessive behavior. So that will include maybe some other behaviors that are not bad, but could be classified as excessive. So let me explain what I'm talking about. So for instance, Risperdal is a medication that is approved for autism. And what it does is it generally calms. Okay, so if you're calming someone, that means they will self-harm less. But they will also be less motivated, and they will probably be a little bit more lethargic and a little bit more numb, to put it that way. So, and unfortunately, all medications are that way. They don't focus on just one particular area. For instance, the medications we give to individuals with ADHD, they are speed, it's amphetamines. So what they do is, as a whole, if it works, they just reduce the hyperactivity, which is a weird concept, but that's how it happens. You actually give someone speed and it reduces hyperactivity. As a whole, that means your brain slows down too. So with Risperdal, which would be the medication in this case, you are calming the individual. Sometimes parents like that because the individual is completely out of control. Sometimes they don't like it because it's causing the individual to act kind of like a zombie, and parents don't like that. So sometimes it's better to do a functional assessment, again, to determine what is causing the self-harm. Why is the person self-harming? They don't say any more than just self-harm. So usually, from my experience, now in the old days, like 30, 40 years ago, we used to, we didn't know anything about the functions of various behaviors. And a lot of people still today will classify self-injurious behavior or self-harm under this category of repetitive stereotypical behaviors that we know nothing about. Now, and that's the second area of symptomology for autism. So autism has to do with two areas of symptoms: delays in social communication and too many of these repetitive self-stimulatory kind of behaviors or excessive behaviors, one of which could be self-harming. From my perspective, when you look at self-harm, the individual is actually trying to communicate something, and usually self-harm is one of a few different things, and I'll tell you, I don't know which applies to your child, but sometimes it's frustration. So the child is just frustrated, and the way they let everybody know is by hitting themselves. I don't know if you've ever, many people, typically developing people, if they get to a certain level of frustration, they will self-harm. It's just that simple. Cutting, which teenagers do, is one form of self-harm. Now, self-harm could be frustration. It could be a sensory need. So for instance, the individual wants to feel something, and they do this because their senses, normally they're not feeling enough, and so this gives them some sort of sensory input that we all crave. It could be that. It could be pain related. Sometimes our kids have major headaches and we don't know about it. So they start to like hit their head against the wall because it actually detracts from the internal pain that they're experiencing. So there's all these different things, and unfortunately, we don't know enough about self-harm. So these are the things I would do if it was my child. I would do a functional behavior assessment. You need a behavior analyst to do that so that they can identify if there's anything that is somehow rewarding this behavior. So for instance, is the child getting a lot of attention every time they do self-harm? The quickest test for that is, does your child do self-harm behavior when no one else is around? Okay, do they do that? Another test is, do they only do self-harm when a demand is placed? Because generally speaking, if I place a demand on a child and they hit their head, most people will back off. And the child learns that and says, oh, this is a good way to get people to back off and leave me alone. So is it attention seeking? Is it a process of escape so that it allows the child to escape a demand? These are important functions that need to be identified. Is it due to pain? It has to be figured out. Is it due to frustration from something else? These are very important things. Or is it just sensory? Once you identify that, then you can identify how to deal with it, how to treat it. If you don't want to do all that, then probably the way to go is to do Risperdal, because it will reduce some of the self-harm, but as I said, it'll also produce kind of this overall, I don't want to call it zombie, but overall lethargic type of change in the child. So I would suggest doing the behavioral modifications first, the functional behavior assessment, followed by behavioral interventions. And if all of that doesn't work, then you should be looking at meds.
Okay. I want to take a break, but we had a question from Laura D. that came in that I think might be better suited for Bonnie Yates tomorrow. Okay. Bonnie Yates is a special education attorney. She wrote it's in reference to something you said a few minutes ago. She said, how can you get the school to add ABA at school? She says, I know my daughter needs it and would benefit, but when I tried requesting it, they said she doesn't, and what the teacher has in place is enough for now. So I can put that with Bonnie tomorrow, or do you want to say anything about
definitely. It? Please do throw it at Bonnie as well. Bonnie's very, very knowledgeable in that world. I would say you need to see and Bonnie will probably say the same thing, is that you'll need to see an expert, which at this point should be a board-certified behavior analyst who will do an evaluation and will write a recommendation. You can also see a psychologist. There are individuals who are very good at doing, or you can see a developmental pediatrician as well, but someone who will do a bunch of assessments on your child and write a report indicating what they actually need. If ABA is in their recommendations, then the school is more likely to provide it.
Another trick, if you don't want to go the full route with a lawyer, a lot of parents end up having to do that. But a quick litmus test to see whether they're going to cave or not is to go back to them and request If you already have an IEP because you already have a diagnosis, request that they show you the data on what they're doing and how effective it is. They don't have data. They don't.
No, it's true. They don't
And-
have data.
And if they see that you're asking for data and that you're going to push it that way and they think you're going to go to a lawyer, they might cough up some ABA for you before you get to a lawyer.
Yeah, but also I just want to give you a little bit more clarity on this because you're writing it. So the concept goes back to the Free and Appropriate Education Act. The concept is if the school district cannot offer your child what is appropriate, they need to pay someone else to do it. Okay, so that's where all this comes from. So before you get into any kind of litigious situation with your school, document everything. So videotape your child's problems at school, the language, document it. Part of going to see a psychologist, let's say, who does testing is that documentation, is so that you have proof that your child is behind on certain areas. And the entire world knows that if they are behind and they have a diagnosis of ASD, the way to catch them up is ABA. And that speech there's no literature that says a couple hours of speech is going to catch your child up. There's thousands of documents and articles. That's why it is approved. That's why ABA is insurance funded. Now, if your school, what you're going for is trying to get your school to realize what they have is not appropriate and enough, and that they need to pay for a program. The other alternative is to get them to pay for, let's say 10 hours, 15 hours in school, and also get your insurance coverage. Your insurance coverage will cover your child after school. So then you will get a school program and an after school program, which is the best thing for your child.
Yeah. And now is the best time ever for this argument because in May of last year, the Supreme Court came in with a decision about a child who was at a school where they were saying, look, we're doing enough, and they weren't doing an ABA program. The parents had the means to take him out of school, send him to another school where he got good help, and the child progressed so much that they were able to successfully get all the way to they went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit said, no, it's enough. Schools just have to do the bare minimum. They call it in de minimis.
Right.
That's the phrase to use with your school, because then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said last year, de minimis is not enough. They haven't defined what is enough.
Right.
That's going to come in future cases. But if you go in and say to the school, and if you want, I've done this before for other families, we have a packet of impact studies that show how effective ABA is that I can email those to you. And if you go in and say, hey, the Supreme Court said de minimis is not enough, they'll know that you mean business and you know what you're talking about. If you say de minimis, they're going to go, what? But we all need to be aware of that. De minimis is not the law of the land. It was for a couple of years, but it is no longer by the Supreme Court. So there you have it. Okay.
We're taking a break.
We were going to take a break, but now we've only got a few minutes. So
Keep
should we
going.
press on?
Oh, of course, of
course. Okay, are you okay?
I'm totally fine.
Okay. But I'm not seeing them. For some reason, it's not working today, Samantha. She's saying try to do some of the Facebook ones. And I didn't get to see them. They're not coming up. It's showing me but if you can email them to me, great. Okay, I will say that we've had many questions that have come in the last week, which is so funny to me that people are saying, is there a way to search by topic for the videos that we've sent in? And you've asked this in many different ways. Right, we're about to get a retool on the website, and then you will be able to on so many things, it's going to blow your mind. But right now, you can do that from Ask Dr. Doreen. It is not on our website. It lives on the CARD website. So what I want to ask you to do, all you have to do is go into Google or whatever your search engine is and put in Ask Dr. Doreen. And what will come up, one of the first things, is the page on CARD where you can search by topic. So it'll say potty training, and then it will say what the questions were. And if you click on the question, it takes you directly to that question, and on YouTube. You no longer have to search through hours and hours and hours to find the question that you want. Somebody had written in and said, please, I love the show, but, finding something is really hard. And we had come to the same conclusion. It just has taken us a little while. And all of that will get moved to our new website, which I think is coming to you within a month. I don't want to promise, but really, really exciting. So somebody had written in and said, how can I search through past shows for help with a topic? Have a 9-year-old with autism who's a perfectionist, and we have answered those kinds of questions.
Definitely.
I knew issue at school. She is homeschooling now, and I'm seeing a big problem that this is for her. Any quick advice for a perfectionist?
There's a lot of different programs when you go into skills, and you should be looking, I believe, in the executive functioning area, because you're going to be looking at the flexibility lessons. These are specifically for our kids who are perfectionists. They're kind of obsessive compulsive about certain things, and generally speaking, there's two things about that. One is that you'll teach them ways to be flexible through the lessons that we have there, and there's lots of them. They'll learn to cope with things being imperfect. But at the same time, you need to realize that perfectionism and control comes from a certain level of anxiety. Might not be current anxiety, it could be old anxiety that kind of at some point led the individual to learn that if I am in an unstable scenario, I must be in control of everything and keep everything tidy and et cetera, and that has just stayed with them. A certain level of anxiety, don't forget, is very good. It's very adaptive, but too much perfectionism tends to make people freeze. And so that's where you go to the flexibility lessons.
Okay. Now all questions have come in from Facebook because they were stuck on mine, but I also want to say the mom wrote in and said, thank you so much for answering my question about the sleep. She said, I share a bed with my daughter. I did not have a choice initially since we had just one room. She doesn't have access to food or drink. She says, I will look into the sound and seizures, but she wants to know, do subclinical seizures lead to some neurological deficits or regression?
They could. They're not gonna. They could put. It's not serious regression, so don't worry. But it is. We do have kids where they are learning certain things, and they will have a seizure, and then all the stuff they learned that day is now gone. So it does happen. So you need to look into that, definitely. But ideally, I don't know if it's possible for you now or not, but ideally getting her into her own space at night would be very important.
Absolutely. I'm going to rapid fire like 5 questions at you. Rafaya wants to know, my daughter is 4 doing ABA. We use cable or string as a reinforcement. She is learning, but her stimming with thread has not reduced. She wants it out of therapy also. She is a sensory seeker. She shakes the thread and sees it moving. Please help.
Yep. If it's very obsessive, I would probably not use it as a reinforcer, although the concept is there. The concept is correct. That's the Premack principle. What you're doing is fine. But it probably would be a good idea to start trying to reduce it to very limited time frames. So what we've done in the past is, like, you'll get a baseline of like how often she's getting it now, right now, even though you're controlling it, and start to just reduce that so that essentially, let's say she would get it, ideally, she would allow to be playing with string only in her room alone, let's say for 10 minutes every 2 hours or something like that. So it's kind of like going to the restroom. So it becomes something that she's allowed, but it's an extremely thin schedule. So it's very, very limited to certain time frames in the day. Short of that, that's one of the hardest self-stimulatory behaviors to get rid of. You need to also watch for her muscles. A lot of our kids who do this, after a while, they have a lot of aches and pains in these particular muscles because it strengthens those muscles pretty significantly. Perhaps try to teach her something adaptive that she can do to replace that, like painting. Strokes of painting might help her reduce that, like having a paintbrush instead of, and it detracts, right, from just doing this in the air to doing it on canvas. You can try to turn it into something. Of course, this is one, as you know, one of our little guys used to do that, and he became a very, very famous drummer. So if you can try to replace it with something that's a little bit more adaptive that's the way to go, because then the individual is getting all of the sensory need they need through something very functional and adaptive.
Okay. I can't choose between, but
Can I also address this one? This is an adult themselves.
Yes.
And they're saying
I was going to go to that one.
Yeah,
yes.
I read it and I was like, I got to address this one. And the answer is yes. Your sister-in-law can definitely help.
Should I read the whole question?
Please.
Can my sister-in-law, who is not qualified to work with Asperger's adults, but yet she is a high school French teacher here in the state of Idaho, be allowed to work with me in skills? Skills that I have never gotten as an Asperger adult because my parent refused to get me tested growing up, and they refused to admit that there was a problem. They always thought that I was the problem. The only services I'm getting now as an Asperger's adult are independent living skills, and I do work and live on my own, but the care I am receiving is inadequate, which my mom won't admit. I think how lovely that you are advocating for yourself and wrote in, and I love that you've already said yes.
I just love it. I read your paragraph and I was like, oh my gosh, I love you.
Yes.
Good for you. And yes, definitely. And what I would suggest for your sister-in-law is to do two things if she's interested. To first of all get some basic training, and she can do that through the Institute for Behavior Training, IBT. And so she just needs to go on there, and I would have her look through. She doesn't really need to go through the professional path. I would suggest she goes through either the parent path or the teacher path and learn sort of the basics. And then while doing that, also, I think you need to get on skills, and skills for autism, and then skills, of course, you yourself would go through and look at the very, very high areas of skills. In fact, you're an adult, so you could look at skills living, which is for adults. And I would go there. Actually, if you go to skills living, then start just answering all those questions. And you can see the areas where you need help, or you can select. And then those are written out in a way that your sister-in-law can help you with those as well. But skills is the content, IBT is the process, the procedures. And just go that path, and good for you. And if money becomes an issue, write into Shannon and we'll see what we can do to help you with some grants to get those two things going.
There you go. I'm so sorry to Grace, the teacher who's written in. We're going to get to your question next week at the top, I swear. Okay, we are out of time and we have to let Dr. Grant-Pichet go, and I know that's sad for all of us. But thank you so much for being here.
It's
it makes
a pleasure.
such a difference. I so appreciate it.
I'm here the next several Wednesdays.
Okay, we're thrilled about that. We are going to take a break right now. When we come back, it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. As I mentioned at the start of the show, Iris Knightley is going to be joining us. She's the author of the book, The Three Brother Tears. So she's going to be talking with us about that. Plus, we've got a lot of in the news and some really interesting stuff to talk about. Stick with us.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Yes, I do. I sing Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
What do you want to eat?
Can I have corn on the cob and some turkey?
I want to eat anything else.
Yeah, I want dessert now.
A few months ago, Jessica and Jack Riley began doing functional pretend play, where they played with toys functionally. For example, placing pretend food on a plate and then pretending to eat it. Recently, they began practicing socio-dramatic play, where they each take on a different role. They've been playing restaurant, where they take turns being the waiter, cook, and customer.
Say hi, welcome to the restaurant. Hi, welcome to my restaurant.
Hi!
I want to eat.
Good job. I would like to eat some oranges and a hot dog, please.
Hello, welcome to my restaurant. What would you like to eat today?
I want to eat hot dogs and drinky burgers.
You want a hot dog, a burger, anything to drink?
Milk.
Milk?
Now that he understands the different roles, they're going on an outing to a real restaurant to see if he can implement what he's learned through play.
Jack Riley, where are we going?
To the restaurant.
To the what?
Restaurant.
restaurant.
You're not saying the word, really.
We're going to the restaurant.
Thank you.
Come on, Suzanne.
Okay, I'm coming. Have you gone to a restaurant with Jack Riley recently?
Not recently. It's been quite a while, actually, so we've been sort of excited because we haven't gone since he's been sort of playing restaurant at home.
I'm gonna ask the lady some pie.
Here's breakfast. These are good breakfasts right here.
And there's all of us at the top of that.
Those are burgers and pizza and stuff, but we want to have breakfast, I think.
And there's mud and ice cream on the pizza.
Yeah.
Do you like the restaurant so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's coffee that you want to drink.
Daddy wants a drink. What do you want? What do you want?
I want a piece of pie.
I think we're not going to have pie. We'll come back for dinner and have pie, okay?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. Thank you. Can I get your drinks?
Can I have a?
No.
I want a blueberry waffles, please.
Good order, Jack Riley. You ordered all by
Thanks, I
yourself.
think you appreciate it.
And I wanted that soda too.
Thank you.
Yummy. Real blueberries. Look at this. Special order.
It has yogurt on it.
Say thank you, Jack.
Oh no, that's even better than yogurt.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Great appetite.
Yeah.
Wow. I couldn't even finish all that. You are a growing boy.
Hey, can we sit better? Can we sit better, buddy?
Hey, mister, I don't see your face. There it is.
There you go.
Just FYI, this is totally not typical.
Do you want to eat more or do you want to be done?
Dude, please.
What's he going to do? What's he going to do?
Looking for next time, Jack Riley.
Autism.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Allspaw Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm thrilled to be here with my good friend Nancy.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. I'm a little like whoa because we had some water leak in our rainstorm last week, and we have had those ginormous fans in our home now
Right.
for a week drying out the wall and ceiling, and I swear I constantly feel like I'm in an airplane hangar. It's so loud. I don't know. You hear about when people lose things in floods. We had a little leak, a little leak.
Yeah.
I mean, and the things that you have to do for a little leak, all week long I keep thinking about all these people with the floods.
The floods, yeah.
And what they must have gone through. I can't even imagine, because it's your whole life gets turned
Not to mention
sideways.
the mudslides, what they've had to go
Oh
through.
my gosh, all the natural disasters this last year, how people, because we're just going to work, doing our thing, trying to make the world a better place, and then something comes in from the side that disrupts, and ours is this little thing, and yet, man, it really puts a crimp in your day.
Yeah,
I'm
it
telling
does.
you.
It does.
Woo!
Makes you thankful for the times that are calm, right?
Oh my gosh. I honestly have been thinking about all the people who have lost so much in this last year, who literally can't go to work because the place where they work has been taken away by a mudslide or something like that. I mean, we have families up in Santa Barbara that the roads are still closed, and they're saying it's going to take something like 200 miles worth of trucks.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Hard to
So,
believe.
A lot going on.
But I'm a little like, woo, because I feel like I'm in a large fan. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, the show was great.
So we have some stories in the news today to talk to you about.
Yeah.
One, which is we've heard before about Texas illegally excluding thousands from special education.
Yeah, well, it's official now.
It's official.
The ruling is in, and I'm waiting to see, because the court ruled that what their policy was, and just so that everybody knows, for a number of years they put a quota on what I don't even know that quota is the right word, but
a target
percentage that was what, 8.7,
8.5%.
8.5.
Yes.
That's how many special ed students there could be at any point at a school.
Regardless of what the reality was, whether in fact they're
they just decided,
more.
well, there's 8.5, instead of looking. And of course, we have things like Child Find in place and the Free Appropriate Public Education Act. And when we look across the country, the national average is somewhere closer to 12%.
Yeah, 12%.
So, realistically, Texas choosing just arbitrarily choosing, no, we're going to say that we have 8.5%. meant that kids were being left out.
Well, so they've been called out on it.
Oh, yes. And they've been given a week to come up with a plan.
But here's my question. What about all these kids that were left out of the system?
Well, isn't that an interesting thing? And I suppose it leaves them open to many lawsuits for negligence.
Yeah, because those kids will never get those years back.
No. And, since progress is cumulative, I would think that there would be damages.
I would think so, too.
So it will be very interesting. Now, Texas, as this was being brought to the forefront, had already decided a few months ago that they were going to change their policy. But as I said, they've been given a week from the federal government to come up with a plan for how to mitigate this. So, and the week is almost up. It's been tick-tock, because this was last Thursday that this came down, and here we are, we're at Wednesday. So they've got like 24 more hours. So let's all keep an eye tomorrow to see what the plan in Texas is. But hopefully it's going to mean a lot more services for a lot of very deserving school-aged kids.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a new robot that's teaching people with autism to navigate office politics.
This story's out of Scotland's Heriot-Watt University. And
Really?
they have a robot named Alex, who is a robotic emotion teacher. They say he's not human, but humanoid.
Yeah, and it's interesting because office politics is a very big deal, whether you are on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. Right. But imagine for somebody who's on the spectrum, who's already trying to navigate a lot of other things. They're trying, like anybody else, they're trying to get the job and get the job done once they have it, and get the the praise and that you need in order to move up. Right. But then not only are there all the other social rules in life, but then it was a big thing for me coming back to work in a corporate environment, because I'd been out of that loop for a while. There are office politics.
Lots of office politics.
And
a lot of those you can't read.
You've
got to read facial expressions for those, and that's a very big part of it. They say that Alex has faced, this robot in this story is simple with very few features. There's a reason why it's humanoid, not human. Human faces generate lots of small extraneous signals that people with autism can find difficult to decode. By contrast, Alex's basic, easily controllable robotic face makes it an ideal teacher of social cues.
And so what they do is a training session with Alex, and that helps the individual to have a safe environment in which to try things out and try to read Alex's minimal facial expressions,
Right.
to help develop that tool of understanding. I need to look and see, did what I say land in a way that is workable. It's a pretty fascinating thing. So we'll look forward to hearing more from Alex. Now tomorrow on the show, we are going to have somebody who's involved in our next news piece because there's a very exciting new 2.99 million, wouldn't we just like to say 3 million? And I don't know why they didn't just give $3 million, grant has been given to the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and the whole purpose is to evaluate their Sense Theater program. This is a program that uses peer models, uses theater techniques, and some really tried and true behavioral techniques to work with individuals with autism. They've already done some studies that have shown that there are huge gains for individuals who use it as opposed to doing nothing. Now they're going to study whether it has gains versus other social interventions. And so they're going to do this at 3 different universities. And we have Dr. Matt Lerner, who's going to be with us tomorrow from Stony Brook, to talk about how he got involved in this, because he's the lead investigator at Stony Brook University.
Stony Brook is one of the universities.
It's one of the
that's taking
universities.
place.
So they're going to do it at Vanderbilt, they're doing it at Stony Brook, and they're doing it at Virginia Tech.
Okay.
And so if you live close to one of those universities, you need to go on their website as soon as you can, because they're starting to take, it's free.
It's a 10-week program.
Yep, and there's 2 different programs that your child could be offered. One of them is Sense, and this is going to be going on for the next 4 years. So they can be in the Sense Theater program, or there is another social skills program that they can be involved in, because they're going to compare them. And the other one is also really wonderful. So, you know, if you feel like your child would benefit from improv and those kinds of things, you might want to put them in the Sense, or you could put them in the other. But it's going to be free. You'll be helping out research, and your kids are going to have access to some really great programs. So again, that's Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech, and Stony Brook,
Right.
State University of New York, Stony Brook.
And they saw improvements on several measures, including playground behaviors with peers, neuropsychological indicators, and altered event-related potentials in the brain, providing neurological evidence of improved memory for faces.
Yeah.
So that came out of this 10-week study that they did thus far.
It's, you know, I'm so excited about it. I've always said that I think theater is a great tool for everyone. Talk about helping with job skills and that flexibility that we were talking about in the last hour. When you learn improv, you are learning all of those things in a really fun environment with other people, and you're making friends, and it's funny and it's fun. So I think this is really great for our kids. I really, really do. And it's not all individuals who are on the autism spectrum. There are neurotypical peers in the programs also. So it's inclusive. I absolutely love it. But we're going to talk to Dr. Matt Lerner tomorrow. And he's somebody who has a very interesting trajectory with how he got involved in this kind of thing. You remember when we were covering Asperger's or Us?
Yes.
The 4 young gentlemen who were on the spectrum who do comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And they always talk about the fact that there was a camp that they did, and that's how they got together and learned these kinds of things. Well, Dr. Matt Lerner is the one who started that camp in Boston. So a really fun full circle for him that he's the lead investigator at Stony Brook for this. It's really, really thrilling. He's the real deal, so can't wait for you guys to meet him tomorrow. And then our last news story, if you didn't see it, you've got to go, I say even leave us and go watch it online. Do you remember when they did the Night of Too Many Stars? And Carly Fleischman she's amazing. We've had her dad here on the show.
Right.
She's the young woman who is so famous for the fact that she's non-vocal. And when she was 13, they thought there was nothing
going on.
Nothing going on. When she was 13, she grabbed the computer of a person who was a caregiver and typed, "My teeth hurt, please help me." And it was amazing. Nobody knew she knew the alphabet, let alone knew how to type. And she was asking for help. And now Carly, you know, she's helped to author a book about her life.
Right.
She has her own talk show.
She's become a superstar in the autism world.
She's amazing and has done a lot of press. And so Carly has started this new talk show and done some amazing interviews with people that are
Channing Tatum is a great one, and James Van Der Beek.
Oh my gosh,
there's
they're
excerpts
hilarious.
from those on the website.
Yes.
If you go
And
to this.
And so then when they did the Night of Too Many Stars, of course it made sense that they were going to have Carly on, and Carly was going to interview and turn the tables on Stephen Colbert, and she was going to interview him. But in the very beginning of the show, they had this poof moment where they had all this paper explode because somebody won something. I don't even remember what that moment was, but all these little confetti papers, little squares of paper rained down on the stage. And of course they had people sweeping them up, but later in the evening, out comes Carly's set, and Stephen Colbert starts the thing, and Carly she has some OCD issues. She started the interview, and she suddenly got up and started picking up the papers off the floor. And everyone watching was like, what's happening? Why? And they were trying to get her back to the desk. She wanted to pick up the papers. And it was one of the most honest depictions of how people that are struggling with autism struggle, because Carly wanted to do that interview.
So this was very instructive,
and she was
really.
ready to do that interview, but the paper, and of course we didn't all know.
Right.
It was live, and we were watching, and they kind of cut away to something else after a few minutes. And then later, Jon Stewart came out and said, okay, let me just explain to you what happened. Some idiot decided to have paper explode and didn't think. And this is what we need to rectify. We need to think more often about the fact that that was going to disrupt. But later, you know, Stephen Colbert had this lovely moment with her where he said, you know, don't feel bad about it. You did a great job.
Again.
We'll do it another time. And so this last week, he had her on his show.
So, and she is hilarious. Some of her questions she asks are absolutely hilarious.
She's delightful.
The interaction with Colbert is just great to watch.
And, you know, kudos to him. I'm just so impressed with him and Jon Stewart with how they have stepped up. I think it's little known fact that how the Night of Too Many Stars began was because Robert Smigel, who is an amazing comedian, author, producer. You know, he's the Triumph the Insult Dog, and worked with all of them on SNL and on their respective shows. He has 2 children who are affected by autism. And so it was something that he said, hey, can we do something? And that's why you see all those first-class comedians.
Right, because they've all worked with him.
And because Robert Smigel said, I need some help. I need an assist here
and
to help other people.
He helps with charities in the New York and New Jersey areas, I believe it funds.
Amazing, amazing what their family has been able to do. And they do it all a little on the QT. They don't get any big press for it, but we want to commend them for it. And we want to commend their friends for stepping up and saying, you know, we're going to do this. But I have to say, these gentlemen have gone the extra step. They get it.
Jon Stewart has, and Stephen Colbert has, and many other celebrities that appear on the show.
And there was no way that I think Stephen Colbert was going to let this go. He had Carly on the show. And for me, as a parent, to see, so often we see things, whether it's here or someplace else, where when we take autism out into the mainstream, there are comments that just make you want to put your head in an oven because you see the ignorance. And it just feels like, oh man, are we ever going to get there? But this particular, I urge you to go on, Google it, watch it, and then take a look at some of the comments. I'm sure that there are some boneheaded comments, but there are people saying things like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that a person who was non-vocal could say and interact in this way.
Right.
And you go, there's a little part of you that goes, really?
Well,
where you been?
It smashes a lot of stereotypes.
But look, if that's the work that we need to get done, thank goodness for Stephen Colbert for saying, I'm not going to let this go.
Yes. Our hats are off
Really,
to him. He gets the
really uplifting.
thumbs up for the week.
Yes. The Autism Awareness Award of the Week,
Right.
Stephen Colbert. And of course, Carly, we love Carly.
She's just she's such a kick.
Hashtag Team Carly, man.
Right.
She's amazing. We have to, I know we've offered before to have her on the
Get
show.
her
We
on
got
the
to make
show.
that happen
Yeah, we
because
do.
she's so delightful.
Maybe we can have her
Wonderful.
co-host with us one day.
Let's just let her host
Okay,
one day,
okay.
and you and I will sit in the booth.
Okay, sounds good.
Because she's wonderful. That's what
She
it's
is.
all about, my friends. That's what it's all about. Anyway, so
Okay.
that's our news for today. But we've got a great guest.
Yes, we do. Iris Knightley.
Yep.
And she's going to be talking about her 3 wonderful boys and what those 3 wonderful boys led her to do in terms of writing.
Yeah, great new book. The 3 Brother Tears. We're going to be talking about that and ever so much more. So stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Hello, activist. Let's talk about step 8. State your intention. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it. Author Napoleon Hill wrote that 100 years ago. The Power of Positive Thinking. Norman Vincent Peale wrote that 60 years ago. See, practicing positive focused thought has been around a long time, long before The Secret came about. That's because practicing positive focused thinking really works. Think about when you drive somewhere in your car. You don't just go around in circles. You have a destination, right? I mean, sure, there's going to be speed bumps and detours along the way, but you know where you're going. State what you want to achieve. Say it aloud, write it down. I have Post-its on my computer. One says, get Wyatt all the treatment and therapy he needs to reach his full potential. Step 2, help other families. The focus part is really important because I realize that in this lifetime, I'm not going to be elected president or become a rock star. But I'm doing okay on those first 2 steps. Live in a state of knowing you will reach your goals for you and your child. Until next time, keep the faith.
Hi, my name is Iris Knightley, and I am the author of The 3 Brother Tears. I am the mother of 3 wonderful young boys, Barris, Kenditon, and Zachary. My oldest son, Barris, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Barris is nonverbal and unable to read or write. One afternoon, I was watching my children play with each other, and I was simply amazed how well my children interacted and understood their older brother, Barris, even if it's not through spoken language. Our journey as a family inspired me to write my book, The 3 Brother Tears. I decided to take a pen to paper and write a vivacious and classic story of the 3 young brothers who go on an adventurous journey as they race about outside on a chilly autumn evening, where the family dog and the frisky squirrels are transformed into characters within their topsy-turvy escapades. In today's technology-driven culture, computers, tablets, and smartphones often replace the good old days of hide-and-seek, climbing trees, and playing a game of tag. Disconnecting from everyday technology and encouraging my children to engage with their imagination has helped them embrace their brother Barris, regardless of his disability. The story The 3 Brother Tears brings to life children's ability to use their imagination, create their own stories, and relate with one another. I decided to launch this Kickstarter to share The 3 Brother Tears with all of you. With your help, I will be able to self-publish my book. For every $20 pledge, you will receive The 3 Brother Tears before it is released to the general public. This is my opportunity to communicate with others about autism and share their positive experiences that can be created with children who are autistic. I want my readers to learn that with children with autism are capable of meaningful communication. Others must learn to believe that they are capable of living a fulfilling life through various activities, whether through play therapy, social engagement, or life skills. I hope you're inspired to help me in 2 ways. 1, please share this Kickstarter with your friends on social media, including Facebook, Instagram, or even an email. A share is priceless to the success of this campaign. And 2, please make a pledge of $20 and you will get an advanced copy of The 3 Brother Tears. Even a small contribution will help us raise awareness.
And we are back, and we now are joined, as promised, by our special guest, Iris Knightley. Hi, Iris. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi, it's very nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
We're thrilled to have you on
yes,
the show.
Yeah. We told our viewers that you are the author now of a book called The Three Brother Tears. Can you go back and tell us how that tale kind of started and the inspiration?
Yeah, so in 2008, I started to write down my ideas and stories. I would just watch my children just play together, and I was just simply amazed at how my children would play with their older brother who has autism, and they don't see the label of disabled or autistic or special needs or different. They see their brother for who he is, and that truly inspired me to write The Three Brother Tears, which is a little twist on the Three Musketeers.
So tell us about your children and their ages and tell us about the three kids.
I have three boys. My oldest son, who's autistic, is Barris. He's 10 years old. My second son is Kensington, which is 9, and my last third son is Zachary, who is 6 years old.
And Barrett is nonverbal?
Barris is nonverbal, and he's unable to read or write, and he's been making some great progress recently, so now we're starting to get little sentences, a little more of a, hi, mom, hi, I love you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, amazing.
That is amazing. Well, you're certainly a beautiful family. I mean, we look at the pictures of all of you, and you're just stunning. The happiness exudes off of the photo, doesn't it?
It definitely does.
And this story, though, you started this back in 2011?
Yes.
And so at what point did you really, because, a lot of people feel like they have something to say. At what point did you say, I've got to do something with this? It can't just sit on the shelf and draw dust. What made you go, I got to get this out to the people?
I noticed when I would go to the parks with my children, whether it was outings to the grocery store, I noticed that children would just stare at my child. Barris has a tendency when he's overstimulated to jump up and down, flap his hands, make certain noises, and children would just stare. Or they would come up to him and try to talk to him because he's nonverbal, and because he wouldn't respond, they would just kind of like walk away and not try to interact. And I felt like seeing my children and how they don't see the difference, I really wanted to put something out there to show that they're just like anyone else, a little different, but just like anyone else, and that little difference makes them just that much more special. So I just felt like, it's really time to really just show that social inclusion and awareness is just so important, even more nowadays.
Absolutely.
So you went home and you started writing this book.
I did. My kids love pretend dressing up and fighting, and we like to read a lot, so I would do a little summary of the Three Musketeers, and they loved it, and they would have their own little adventures here, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do a tale on the Three Brother Tears and really show the way my children play and how they include their older brother despite his difference, and really just show that how social inclusion is just naturally embraced, and that children with autism are just wonderful, just like any other child.
And you did a Kickstarter to get the funding. I just think you're really clever, Iris, And you did a Kickstarter to get the funding to be able to publish the book. And the book, you got your money. The book is now available as of about a week ago. Is that correct?
Yes. So we did the Kickstarter account just to kind of really kick off and really just reach out to parents who have a child with special needs and not just specifically autism, and just say, I have a cause, and I have a story, and I really just wanted to show that there's just so much more to it. So so the book is available as of a week ago off of now Amazon Kindle, and now hardback and paperback. So I'm really excited.
That's really wonderful. So where do people go to get it in the hardback?
You can go on my website at www.irisknightley.com, or you can also find it on Amazon, and I believe it's available on Barnes & Noble as well.
Okay. And there is a charity portion of
Yes,
this.
there is. Tell us about the charity aspect of this.
So I partnered with Good Dog Autism, which is a nonprofit organization based in San Diego that helps families who have children with autism find a service dog companion. And my son also has a service dog, Milo, which is also a part of the storyline. And I really know the benefits of what a service dog and the difference a service dog can make in a child's life. So I really wanted to partner with a nonprofit who I can personally associate and vouch for as with my son's personal experiences. And
so this is the foundation that you worked with your son to get a service dog?
They are not. The foundation that I got my son's service dog from is no longer running anymore. So we had done some research, and I was looking through different websites, and I just really love the message that Good Dog Autism has. And Laura Sylvester, who is the owner, with the one who runs the organization, also has a son on the spectrum, and there was just so many connections between she and I that I knew that her nonprofit just had everything that I believe and wanted to support. And on the back of the book, it also shows that I'm partnering with Good Dog, and for every book sold, a portion of the proceeds will give back to that foundation to help other families who are trying to have a service dog for their child.
That's great.
It's a remarkable story, just in terms of the fact that we always talk about the power of one on this show, and that sometimes there are moms watching who feel like everything isn't working out. Right? And what do I do? And I want to do something. And we always talk to people about it. Once you include other people into the question, when you're helping somebody else, or that's your motive, I don't know why, but it seems like things get easier. And I think that this is remarkable. You have a bachelor's degree in history, and you're currently getting a master's degree, but I'm just going to guess that it was not part of your plan that you were going to have a child with autism and write a book that was to help the autism community and help the greater community to understand and have social acceptance. But what a great story, Iris, for other parents to see and be inspired by.
Thank you so much. Yes, when Barris was diagnosed with autism, I was actually in the middle of my going to school for my bachelor's in history, and I was just, it definitely, I had no idea what autism was, and it was through this journey that I truly feel that it really shaped and changed me into the person and mother that I am today. So it's just been a wonderful and beautiful experience, and that's definitely what I wanted to show in my book, that having a child with autism can bring so much to you as a person, as an individual, to your family, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
And who do you think is the best audience for this book, Iris?
I think anyone who has a child with special needs, a mother, a father, maybe you have a niece or nephew or a grandchild, anyone who you can relate to. And even if you don't have a child with autism, it's a fun and adventurous and classic story. So, but I truly wrote this book to really reach out to parents who feel that they're alone, because you're not alone. There's so many other parents and a huge community out there who understands you and who really want to support you. And that's definitely what my message was for my book, to the autism community and to parents who understand what it's like to have a child on the spectrum.
And then I'll let you speak, I promise. I just want to say, too, that I think it would be sometimes as autism moms, we need to get something for other people's children, our friends who have neurotypical kids.
Right.
What a great gift to give the children, the neurotypical children in your child's life.
Because it teaches them lessons.
Yeah, I think so. What did you want to say, Nancy?
I wanted to ask you if there were plans for other books in this series, or a series of books.
I do plan to continue a series for the Three Brother Tears. I have some other ideas going on that I have. Right now, the boys are transitioning into ninjas. So I've thought, okay, so maybe I could do like a little twist on that with ninjas and just keep it going. And as long as, there's families and children who can enjoy the books, then I will continue to write a series of the Three Brother Tears.
And what are you getting your master's degree in?
History.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I love history, and it's just been a passion of mine, and I just want to continue that and continue to write. I do have other books on mine as well, but I will continue my master's in history.
Well, you're an amazingly positive role model for special needs families everywhere.
And we want to remind people, irisnightly.com, where you can get more information. It is Nightly with an E at the end. But there it is on the screen for you. And Iris, thank you so much for being with us and for all the work that you're doing.
And say hi to your boys for us.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And again, I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
What a wonderful guest. We're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and start to wade through some of the questions that you guys have been sending in. So stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back. You're live on Autism Live, and I've got my friend Jennifer here. I'm so excited she's here to help me. She's got a son named Dylan. I got a son named Jeff. We got all sorts of allergy issues. And a lot of you say, what the heck can we do to eat breakfast that's not full of carbs?
And getting my son to eat vegetables.
Yeah. This is a vegetable. So we're going to eat vegetables today. And so what we're making is zucchini muffin. So let's go ahead and get started. So we just dumped in our zucchinis. You can start with less if you want to graduate your kid to actually eating healthy. We're going to do some eggs. And again, I use the organic cage-free eggs. So there's our eggs. I'm going to add in our oil. Again, I use a high heat oil. And the reason why I use a high heat oil, because when you bake, you want to make sure you're using an oil that doesn't disintegrate, because when oil gets too hot and it's not meant to get hot, it becomes toxic. So you got to be careful with your oils. So there goes our maple syrup, and again, organic maple syrup. What we're going to add next is cinnamon and our baking soda, baking powder to our mix. There's a lot of variations on flours. A lot of our kids are allergic to wheat, so there's a lot of things we can do to make this SCD, specific carbohydrate compliant, or just gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free. And flaxseed meal. Flaxseed meal is a great resource for extra fiber within the kids' diets. We're just going to turn on this fabulous, wonderful KitchenAid, and we're good. It's a great, great looking batter. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about baking, where almost everything is aluminum, and aluminum can be a problem for some kids, especially kids that can't methylate and take the toxins out with their body. But if you've got, like me, I've got muffin tins, so I have the ability to just simply put in some cupcake holders, and that actually holds that together if I want to freeze it. Hey, nice work. Those look good, but wait till you see them when they're done.
All right.
So go ahead and pull them out. Here are the fabulous muffins. Now, if you've got a sensory kid that doesn't like vegetables, I can already I Spy the zucchini. Remember what I told you earlier. Resolve that simply by peeling off the green layer, and then it will cook literally translucent. Such a nice golden brown. I love how the texture is. We know that the breakfast can be a challenge. This makes that process a whole lot easier for you and your family. I really appreciate all the feedback. We definitely want to hear from you for our next segment. If you'd like us to cook something or maybe make an old favorite and that's allergy-free, we can do that here on Autism Live. So give us your feedback. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page like everybody, facebook.com/autismlive. And also you can reach Taka on the Taka website at Taka Now. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us on Autism Live.
Welcome back. We've got a bunch of questions that have been coming in, and so we wanted to address some of them. But before we go anywhere with them, Nancy and I want to remind everybody that we are not behavior analysts. And we are not experts in autism. We just want to get that out there. But we can address some of these questions as moms and give our input and questions. Somebody wrote in and said, my nephew is 3 years old. We are from India. He is taking homeopathic since 1 month. But now we are seeing that he's getting nowadays more stubborn and getting aggressive and hitting himself. So much of addictive behavior to mobile. We started GFCF food for him as well. Can't see any improvement. Also, we are doing different therapy for him. Please advise. And I want to say also that Lisa wrote in and said, all my son does is watch the iPad. Please help. So they're both of them. We have this
addiction to iPads.
Yes. And that can be a tough thing. I just want to stop and say, imagine for a moment that somebody picks you up and transports you to another planet, right? And you don't know the language, and you don't have any way to get your needs met. They have a different configuration that they don't have fingers, so you can't even do sign language. Maybe their eyes are in the back of their head. Maybe they have tentacles instead of eyes. So you don't know how to get your needs met, right? And what would you do? If somebody kidnapped me and put me in a dark room and I didn't have anybody to communicate with, I always say, how long would it take you before you threw a tantrum?
Started acting out.
Before you started kicking,
right,
throwing things,
right,
hitting the wall? I bet it would take me less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Because I would need to go to the bathroom. I would want something to drink. I would be hot or cold. I'm fussy. I would start to act out. And this is what happens with all children. If you think about it, all children are born and they cry. They come out of the womb and they cry. And we now have narrowed it down to there's like 5 different kinds of cry. Did you know this now with nuance?
No, I didn't know that.
There's a specific cry that's for when you're hungry. There's a specific cry for when you're tired. And they've like done studies on this now, that you can listen to your baby and figure out which one is which. That they're uncomfortable temperature-wise, that they need to eat, that they need attention, that they need to be held. Back in our day, the baby cried, we picked it up and we jiggled, we fed, we did, the 5 things. And if that didn't work, you went to the pediatrician and said, why is my baby crying? But the babies cried and we reacted.
Right.
And we set up a communication system, right? Then kids get to the age of 2 and they begin to hear language, neurotypical babies, they hear language and they see that things move faster. So they want to be able to communicate, but they can't. And that, my friends, is called the terrible twos.
Yes.
I want, and I don't know how to get it.
Right.
But I see that you guys have a way of getting it faster, and I haven't figured out the code yet.
Yeah.
And we have terrible twos, and all kids tantrum. Every single one of them, neurotypical and otherwise tantrum. The problem with autism is that if we don't bridge that gap to communication, then the tantrums will continue.
Yes,
by the way, it continues with the neurotypical kids if we don't make them use their words.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
We've all met the kid that the mom never said, use your words, right? And so they kick your kid to get their cookie, right? Because mom didn't say, use your words. So with kids with autism, it's not enough to say, use your words. We got to get in the trenches and we got to teach
them the
some
tools.
kind of functional communication. Right. That might be speech. It might be having them talk on an iPad. But again,
if they're nonverbal.
Let's go back to if somebody stuck you in a dark room where you can't communicate with anybody and they hand you an iPad. I don't know about you, but I'd be like, okay, I'm good.
I'm
Leave
going
me
to town
alone.
here. Yeah.
I got my iPad because
You're in
I
that
know how to
world.
communicate with the iPad,
Right.
and it's got stuff that's fun.
So it's so reinforcing. It's like a very reinforcing thing for
And
kids.
if I don't have any other way of connecting with anybody, I mean, I love my phone. I'm a little addicted to my phone. I like to take my phone and play on it, and I look forward to the time of day when I get to sit for a few minutes and play my stupid little game on my phone. Do you have a game that you play on your phone?
No, I don't.
You're too highbrow for that.
No, I'm not too highbrow for that, but I don't have a game.
And you don't play anything on your iPad?
No, I don't.
And some people don't, but a lot of us do. It's addictive. And it's fun and it's relaxing and it reduces stress and sometimes it causes more stress, whatever. But so the thing is, in all cases, when we have anybody who is on the autism spectrum, the first order of business is we have to give them functional communication. We just have to. And we will continue to see aggression and it will escalate until they have functional communication. I call it the magic X when they take data, and please believe me that I'm not a data taker, and I don't even like to look at the data, but there's this magic X thing. that on one chart they will have that your child is, what their behaviors are,
Right.
that they're engaged in, hitting and kicking and whatever, and that's way up here, right? And then they will have their communication, and that's way down here on the chart. And there are these two lines that are really far apart, right? But as communication goes up, in exact proportion, those challenging behaviors go down, and it creates the magic X. And when you see that X on your child's data, you know, okay, now we're cooking with gas. Because if you give them the functional communication, they don't have to throw the tantrum. The reality is it takes more energy to throw the tantrum than to say on an iPad, I want juice. But if you don't know how to do it, you will throw the tantrum. It's just common sense, right? So, for the 3-year-old, and I hear that you're doing the GFCF, which I think is a good place to start. Yes. I really am of the school of thought, I know, and I will tell you honestly that not every kid sees an advantage from it. Some kids see almost an immediate. Some it's much more progressive, but what do you think, Nancy? I say give it a college try for a year.
I say keep trying it. It helped my son enormously.
Helped my kid.
I know that without it, he was a mess. And,
my kid too. But how long would you say people should try it before they go, look, it's not making a difference?
Well, I think you have to really try it for a long period of a fairly significant amount of time.
I tell people a year. I mean, I think the least amount of time that you should try for, and I mean doing it really succinctly with no challenges, would be 6 months.
Right. I've heard of a lot of parents who say they tried it, it didn't do any good, but they didn't really try it. They really didn't do it in a pure way.
You got to do it. You got to really give it the college try. And I will say that I benefited from somebody else's mistake. When we tried it, and first we got rid of the gluten, and then a couple of weeks later we got rid of the milk, which is not how I would do it, honestly, but I didn't know. And we saw such a tremendous difference. First with the gluten and then with the milk. Oh my gosh, the behaviors, when we got rid of the milk.
The milk for us was a big one too. The dairy had more of an effect on Wyatt than the gluten.
Well, the gluten affected Jem's speech. When we got rid of the gluten, before he had lost all of his functional communication, we got rid of the gluten, and within 5 days of getting rid of the gluten, he was adding 5 words a day to his vocabulary.
That's amazing.
It was miraculous, right? But we were still having tantrums.
And you attribute that to the diet.
I do, and here's why. And then we took him off the milk, and then his behaviors lessened, and then so that made more words happen. But we got about 2.5, 3 months in, and we were going to the YMCA right before they kicked us out. Right? Don't even get me started talking about that. But still holding a grudge. But anyway, I took him to drop him off at the child care,
right,
so that I could go work out. I had this idea that I was going to work out. And we'd only done this a couple of times. I dropped him off, and he had a little tag that I would pin on him that would say, do not feed, because he's allergic to everything, is what I said to them, but we were doing the gluten-free, casein-free. And so I went to go get on a machine, and I'm, doing the treadmill, whatever, and 15 minutes later, they come and get me, and they're like, you got to come in. He's like turned into a wild animal. And I went in, and my son he was, and the snot and tears and everything, and that he apparently had thrown something at a child, and I didn't even recognize him. And I was like, what happened? And they were like, we don't know, but you got to take him home.
And had they given him something
to
eat?
Wait for it. So I take him out to the parking lot, and I'm so upset, and I'm like, what happened? And I was thinking, I haven't seen this kind of behavior in a really long time since we took out, maybe that gluten-free, casein-free diet isn't working. And I thought it was like such a good thing. And I go home, we spend the weekend at home, and he kind of calms down by Sunday. And Monday we go back to the YMCA, and I'm not 5 minutes, they say you got to come and get him. He can't come anymore. And I'm in tears and embarrassed and mortified and feel like this is going to be the rest of my life, right? And I go out to the parking lot, and he won't even let me hold on to him. I'm trying to get into the car, and one of the boys that worked there, one of the workers, came up to me, and he said, I don't mean to interrupt, but your child isn't supposed to be fed anything, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I don't know whether this means anything or if this has to do with what's happening right now, but they fed him pretzels on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who fed him pretzels? And it was somebody, the director of the program. And he said, I watched her feed him a whole, big Ziploc thing of pretzels. And he said, and then his behavior changed like that. So I don't know if that could have anything to do with it. I hugged that young man. He left the YMCA and then started working at the health food store, and I would see him on a weekly basis. And I would always say to him, you might have saved our lives. Because I was like, it's not worth the work if it's not preventing this stuff.
Right.
But, and let me just tell you though, I think of that as being a gift all the time. Now at the time, I was so furious. Oh my gosh. But I think of it as a gift because I would never have done a challenge.
Right.
I would never have fed him a bunch of pretzels to see if my kid was going to change into this seething little person that he was. I would never have done that. But you know what? It was a really good thing that they did it because he told me.
Right.
So
you, that was your proof that this was definitely something that was working, and that if you had an infraction, it was going to cause some major issues.
And we are still gluten-free, casein-free. Like 5 years ago, my mother was visiting, and I was flying to a conference that she had come to help take care of Jem, and I wasn't even to the airport yet on the plane, and she fed him gluten and cheese.
Right.
And I was like, really, Mom?
People tend to think that this is no harm doing this little
Well,
bit.
that wasn't it. I had labeled something in the freezer for her and Jim. But you see, I named my son Jem, and my mother looked at it and thought it said Jem. And she said, this is gluten-free. It's fabulous. And I said, what? What are you talking about? She goes, this baked ziti and oh, yeah, you're not feeding that to Jem, are you? What are you doing, Mom? And lost my mind. But he had hives.
Yeah.
He broke out in hives. He didn't have behavior, but he broke out in hives.
Wyatt gets gastrointestinal problems if he has dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like instant diarrhea, the whole.
Good times, not. Right?
So I think the moral of our story is we're saying try to stick with this
a while longer. But then you got to look at, I hear that you're saying that that your child is getting other therapies, but if they are not doing something that's proven and effective for getting functional communication, that aggression is going to continue to mount. And he's 3 right now. 3 is the perfect window to be doing an ABA program, doing 40 hours of ABA. That's what's shown to be effective. That's what my kid had. That's what Nancy's kid had.
Mine had 30 hours a week of ABA.
Well, but anything, they say the window is 25 to 40, and then others say 30 to 40. I say do 40, and if you can't get 40 on your own,
you can go on skills.
Do 40 on your own. An IBT will help you to train, but skillsforautism.com, it's the same curriculum that our kids had, but that's what's going to help with that. So that would be my advice. That's what works, but I would stick with the GFCF diet. Now, for the other mom, when we're talking about when kids are addicted to the iPads, let's talk about that a little bit.
How to get a replacement in there. It's got to be more rewarding than the iPad is the problem.
Or it's either got to be more rewarding, or it's got to be something that they can't do the iPad and that at the same time.
Right.
And you got to be strategic and think, one of the things that I love about ABA is that it's not, step 1, step 2, step 3. It's like a creative toolbox. And you get to kind of be a Sherlock Holmes detective and go, what could this be and what might it be? So, and then you pull out tools to use to try to figure it out. But if somebody is doing something with an iPad and you hand them their favorite stuffed animal, now within a few seconds, if the child really loves the stuffed animal, they're going to take the stuffed animal. Within a few seconds, they're going to stick it under their arm and hold it while they're doing the iPad, right? They're going to figure it out. So you really have to stop and think about, what does my child love and what would be competitive with the iPad? And then you want to keep the iPad, if it's really reinforcing, you want to keep the iPad as a reinforcer and or the time that you most need it, right? So you're going to go on a little bit of an iPad diet. But if you just legislate it and go, well, we're only doing the iPad in the car, oh my gosh, you're going to see tantrums to end all tantrums. Why would you do that to yourself? But maybe your kid loves going swimming. Well, guess what? You can't go swimming with an iPad. So what you might do for the first week is clear your schedule from everything else so that you can get them a little bit pulled off of it, give them a little bit of period of time in which, and you just go, so it's Monday and you go, we're going to the community pool, or we're going swimming all day. That's if they love swimming. If it isn't swimming, you figure something else out that is competitive, that the kid will really, maybe it's going to an amusement park, right? Or whatever the fun thing is.
It sounds like a lot of work, Shannon.
Okay, but is it more work? And thank you for saying that. Is it more work than battling over the iPad?
No.
If you had to set aside 4 days and say, for 4 days, I'm going to push and I'm going to do something wild and crazy that's really exciting, and at the end of it, what we're going to have is a schedule with the iPad and we're not going to fight over the iPad anymore, wouldn't it be worth it? That's so much of what ABA is. It's a lot of work. Let's not mince.
Right.
It's a lot of work, but it pays off in better odds than anything I know of. If you put the work in little increments and say, I'm not working on anything else right now except the addiction to the iPad, I'm going to create a diversion. We're going to laugh, and I'm going to, plan it all out 4 days. And the only time he gets the iPad is when he's in the car being transported to these places. What you'll find is, don't make the mistake of on day 5 being so exhausted yourself that you just hand them the iPad because you need a break, right? Maybe you taper it off and have something exciting to do and create other things that aren't as reinforcing but still reinforcing, like finger paints. There are lots of things that you can do. There's every single Smartie that we've ever done. All kinds of things that you can do that compete with the iPad. It's hard. I have a child who loves technology, but we, over the years, we've had to keep changing and go, what can we possibly, I was so worried, sorry about that. I was so worried because over the break I was sick and I was just like, ugh. And my son just got a VR system and he was full on in that VR world and playing and, way more than I would have allowed. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a nightmare going back to school, but he's on his robotics team. And 3 days before school started, we had to drop him off for a 10-hour robotic day. And I thought, he's not going to make it. But robotics was so much more reinforcing. And, he's thrilled to be doing it. So you keep having to balance, but you can get them to the point where the iPad is just in those specific increments when they've done something great, or when you need it, like in the car, or when something has happened and you need to calm them down. It will take some work, but you can do it. Get some help. Clear your decks.
Right.
We're out of time.
Right, okay.
Tomorrow on the show, we believe that we have Bonnie Yates, although we're still waiting to hear because she's got a case that may be going in front of somebody tomorrow, so we're waiting to hear about that. But I know for sure that we have Dr. Matt Lerner from State University of New York at Stony Brook to talk about that SENSE program and to talk about Spotlight, the camp that he created. And then we also have a wonderful, wonderful guest, a really impressive gentleman who's going to be with us. And of course, I can't think of his last name in this moment, but he used to be the president, Lee Grossman. Thank you.
Grossman.
I knew that it was a name that I know really well. Lee Grossman, he's amazing, you guys. Such a wealth of knowledge, an amazing dad, someone who's been very influential in the autism community. It's the first time that we're having him here on the show. Very respected gentleman, so I know you're going to love this interview. He's got a lot to share about some things that he's working on and some things he's learned along the way. We love it when we hear from a dad, don't we?
Especially the dads, yeah.
Yes.
We don't hear enough from them.
Yeah, and he's an incredible gentleman, so thrilled that he's going to be here with us. So until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for
Bye-bye.
now. I just